I'm streaming again. No, maybe not.
So we really don't have anything to talk about tonight. You know, I warned you guys a while back that I was going to be no help for the foreseeable future, and so I have been true to my word.
I'm streaming again.
Well, Seth's got something
maybe
here.
not.
So we really don't have anything to talk about tonight. You know, I warned you guys a while back that I was going to be no help for the foreseeable
You just can't do it.
future.
Can't
I've
focus,
been
can
true
you?
to my word.
I'm streaming again.
Well, Seth's got something here.
All
All right, I just
So
waited
we
to hear
really
mine.
don't have
That's all I
anything.
needed to hear.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't have much. Sorry.
And, you know, at times like this, I'm perfectly fine if we just don't do a show, right? If we just like, we got nothing. We don't have to do a show just to do a show.
Well, since we didn't
I
do.
could do freaking an hour on universities right now, having gone through that whole thing in the last week or so.
So I'm on chapter 2 of The New Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
Oh, really?
So, like I said, I'm really early in, but the dude is losing credibility by the second.
Yeah, he's got a bit of an edge case, that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm every time he speaks, I'm like, I can't believe anything this guy's saying. This book is total garbage. Now, maybe he'll win me over, but so far, he's just a nut bag with an axe to grind.
Who worked for the NSA or something? Is
Well,
that what
I
his
mean,
claim to fame is?
Yeah, that's what he says. Maybe there's evidence of that. Maybe there's not.
Well, why don't we talk about that too? Because I mean, that would be interesting. Because I can't remember what it was when I saw the video on it. It sounded credible, but God, that was a while back.
Well, I'd like to finish the book. I just started
All
it
right.
today, so I don't
All right.
want to poison that well just yet. But my BS detector's going crazy. When I read the Kevin Mitnick book, it was the same thing. And I know Kevin Mitnick's claim to fame. I know most of what he said was true, but he just came off as such a scumbag. I actually wanted him to go to jail. You know, you're not doing yourself any favors here, dude.
Yeah, his what would you call it? Morality meter is kind of a little weird. The stuff he thinks is like acceptable behavior is, I don't know.
Oh, wow. I can do that? I can have all of us on the screen now? How did that happen? That was a complete accident.
Oh.
Can I do that again? Wait, so now there's Seth and Miles. Can I pin me too?
What does present now mean? Does that mean we can do like put screenshots up or PowerPoint presentations and bore everybody?
Yeah, you can share your screen, basically.
Oh, look at that. Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
I thought I
Yeah.
found a cool feature, but now I can't figure out how to do it on purpose. All right. Cool. Now those are you two on screen. Can I do me on screen too? Because then I would just not have to do this camera switching thing.
It doesn't do it automatically anymore?
Oh, it never has for me because I don't route my audio. I'm not using the Hangouts audio. So
right.
all of our audios come through the same channel, so it would just be on me all the time.
Got it.
Anyway, new updates every time we do a show. Hey, Jenda, welcome.
Howdy.
All right, we're just gonna wrap. This may be a 10-minute show. That's fine too. God, yes, Google. I just signed into another account. Stop bugging me about it. Every one of my devices. New sign-in alert. Sorry, I'm just in a cranky mood. I'm a cranky geek today. So what was I doing? The stream is going. Jenda's there, so I know the stream is working. We're all recording, right?
Yep.
Little squirrels running at top speed.
Oh, are we ready to start the local
Oh, I thought you already
hard
had.
drive thrashing?
Yes, please. If you have not already, please
Okay.
do now.
I have engaged. I'm giving her all she's got, Carlton.
So was I going to say? I am just so scatterbrained. I've been working far too many hours, and my brain is just gone. It's that season. I don't know why. I don't know why healthcare should be seasonal, but it absolutely is. Absolutely is. Nobody wants to install a new system in December. They all want to do it in June and July. Okay, I guess we're ready to do this. Oh yeah, I need to change the thing here because I am Ron Burgundy. Okay, let's do this. So everybody's recording now, yes?
Yep.
Sir, yes, sir.
I'm going to do a marker right here. I'm going to look at that camera, and I'm going to say, hey, everybody, welcome back to... Wait, that's not how we do this show. How do we do this show? Hello, everyone. There it is. Hey, everybody is Android App Addicts. Okay, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GeekRant, episode 359. Stay in school, kids. Recorded May 19th, 2019, and brought to you by Element OP Productions. ElementOP.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Drive Time Radio for Geeks. I am your host, Mark, who used to have a name, but I'm not going to do that anymore. I need another new spiel. And these guys with me are Seth and Miles. Hey, guys.
Wow, when you put it like that. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Sorry we missed you. Sorry you missed us. Maybe, hopefully you missed us at least a little bit.
We're highly motivated and ready to perform.
Yeah, without the shtick, it's like, wow, that intro just fell flat, without the middle name thing.
Well, it wasn't so much that. It was just like, bleh.
Here's some guys.
So, yeah.
I'm
Here's some
here.
whatever. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm here.
It's like,
so are they.
It's like Mark was possessed by Eeyore.
As Dave Ramsey says, when Eeyore becomes your spirit animal. So the topic, the title here is, I called it Stay in School Kids, because yesterday I worked outside for about 4 hours, and it reminded me why I went to college, because working outside for 4 hours in the summer in the South is not for a fat old man like me. It's just not. So it was just doing, my own household chores. I pressure washed the outdoor furniture, and I oiled up the wooden furniture that, it's things that have to be done annually before, you can sort of start using your yard. We're going to spray for mosquitoes a little later on. But man, I worked like a Mexican, pardon my racism. And it's just not for me. I want a nice air-conditioned job. So stay in school, kids. Otherwise, you'll be like me.
So what happened to me was I woke up and I wasn't able to mow the yard for the last 2 weeks because of the rain. And I piddled around long enough for the powerful round of rain to come washing through. So doggone it, not able to mow the yard again this week. So next week I will be, I don't know, using either a chainsaw or I'll crank my mower all the way up to try to get through the yard.
Yeah, I was outside too, if you can believe that. Because we had this is going to sound funny. My Mexican friends who are contractors, Miguel and Marcos, came over and painted the back of our house, which now led me to having to redecorate the whole back of the house part. So I've been doing that all day.
Yeah, so this Monday, a week ago tomorrow, I got a new roof on my house. Yay. I also stroked a fat check for it because this wasn't an insurance thing. This was a 20-plus-year-old roof. But roughly the entire population of Mexico, I don't know how many people it was, but it was many, many Mexican men, possibly Honduran. They were definitely south of Texas guys. If they spoke English, they didn't speak English to us. You know how that goes. They descended upon my house. They ripped off the old roof. They put the new roof on. They cleaned up and ran away like ninjas. There was never a hint that they had been here other than the new roof. They got all the nails. They cleaned up after everything. It was just an amazing sight to behold. It was like a tornado of workmen just came in, and instead of taking the roof away, they put a new one on. It's those guys. My hats are off to people who do that and do it excellently every day. It's hard work, and to do it with such care and precision. Props, free commercial to Crestmark Roofing out of Douglasville, Georgia. Nice job, Crestmark.
Well, I tell you what, Snap, we had our roof done this week too. 20-something-year-old house, complete re-roof, and it's all tile. So they took each tile off, terracotta tiles, and the same thing. Crew of a great crew, great workers, all Mexican, and they came and did a bang-up job. 6 days it took them, and yeah, like you, wrote a big check, and don't regret it, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's like physiological level stuff. You need shelter,
right?
Particularly when you're in the desert, and I'm sure in the same with the South. I mean, we get rained on, we get heat, we get the whole bit, and you rely on that roof. So. Good, I'm very happy they did it.
I'd mentioned a couple of weeks ago that we had the automotive things, and there was some, and that my emergency fund was depleted. As much as I hate to say this, I actually had to go into debt for this roof. I wasn't able to cover the full amount. I covered a good chunk of it. So for the next 8 months or so, I'll be paying that off. And that hurts me. That hurts me on a deep, fundamental, emotional level, to have had to put that on a credit card. But it's what
the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, it's the way it has to be sometimes.
But you could do it. So you got a roof over your family's head. So that's worth the few extra bucks you'll be paying in interest.
Yeah, and we tried to wait just as long as we could, but I mean, every rainstorm revealed a new leak, and it was getting to the point where we were like literally sticking pots and pans under things. It's just time, and it's not shoddy workmanship or anything. The roof was 25 and a half years old. It was just time. But yeah, I just couldn't put it off. I couldn't save up any longer. I had to actually go into debt to do it. So
wow, they're not cheap. They're not cheap.
No,
I mean,
no, they're not.
We're talking tens of thousands of dollars typically.
Well, I didn't do the terracotta, but so shingles are much cheaper. But anyway, enough about that. One other thing that I did just today, I watched, so that you don't have to, mind you. I took the bullet for you. I watched Bumblebee today, the prequel to the Transformers Michael Bay series. And, I went into this knowing, not expecting, not, thinking, maybe knowing it was going to be bad. And it was, but not as bad as I thought it would be. There were moments of enjoyability in it. There were times when the animation didn't totally suck. So, there you go. I watched it so you don't
praise. Have to. Parts of it weren't total garbage.
Have either of you seen that one?
No,
not I.
Yeah. It was the red DVD that came in the mail. And I watched it because I've seen all the others. I'm a completist, and I have to sometimes. If I've seen all the others, if I'm invested in a series, I kind of have to continue on. Yeah, I felt that way with the Harry Potter movies by the end. I know some people just absolutely love those, but it was drudgery at some point. It was like, I just have to do this so that I have done it. And so that was Bumblebee. I just had to do it. I mean, and the animation was better than the 80s cartoon, but a little, just a little. Certainly not up to the multi-billion-dollar budget that the other ones had. But anyway, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't good. If it's on in the background, it's okay to leave it running. That's my review of it.
All right, man. That's gotta leave, y'all. I got a movie to watch.
That's all I got. I got nothing else. So Miles wants to complain about the cost of higher education for a little while. So for the next 18 or so minutes, it's going to be Miles ranting. Ready, go.
Okay. It's May and it's graduation time. at least for some kids who go to college. I shouldn't say kids; these are young adults. But it was the end of 4 years of undergraduate for my daughter, and she graduated last week, which is why I wasn't on the show. And it was very interesting. It was kind of bittersweet. On the one hand, you kind of see your kid going off into the world as an adult and having their own career and all that sort of good stuff. And then at the same time, it's kind of shocking because my daughter graduated at the University of Arizona in Tucson. And so we went down to Tucson and stayed overnight there because they had two large graduating ceremony. One was the graduation for all of the graduating kids of the year, which was done in the football stadium. It was huge. And the second was her business school, which would have been a smaller group. So the first group, there were 10,000 kids graduating at once. 10,000. And that means the school population is somewhere around the 70, 80,000 mark. It's overwhelming. I mean, you're sitting in the stands as if you were watching some mega football game, and you're seeing 10,000 kids. Now, they can't read their names out. I mean, that would be painful. But they were doing it by group and, by school. So you got the science majors, you got the business majors, you got the arts and humanities people, and, and so on, engineering and so on. And I don't have any problem at all with somebody who pursues higher education, for whatever reason, particularly if that's their calling. If they, they want to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. I mean, this is what you do. But what I saw there was what was sort of the downside of it, the shocking side of it, was to do the math and to realize that each one of these 10,000 students that were graduating paid approximately $12,000 a year for in-state subsidized, tuition, or as much as maybe $25,000 or $30,000 per year for out-of-state or foreign exchange students, and there were a lot of those. And then on top of that, you're paying another 10 or so in accommodation cost, and then another 3 or 4 in books and ancillary costs and so on. I mean, this is a $25,000 a year cost, and these kids were there for 4 years. So do the math. That's $100,000 per child. So somebody's paying for that. And the statistics, when you look at it, I mean, we paid for my daughter's education. I mean, we'd saved up since she was a kid for this. This was just how we did everything. And I guess maybe it's a uber conservative approach, but as a parent, I didn't want to lumber my kid with any debt. And I didn't want to take on any debt myself because I knew that at the time that she would go to college, I would be, wanting to go into the, not retirement so much because I don't think I'll ever do that, but I would want to not work anymore. Effectively, I had the choice. So I didn't want to carry around debt with me. But what it was scary was that everybody else who was sitting there didn't have that choice. There was a default position that they all took on debt. So I kind of looked at the whole thing and thought, well, here's the weird thing. My daughter went to a business school. And so before they finish their college, like 6 months before, these kids are out there shopping their resume around. They haven't got anything on the resume, right? They've been to college. They haven't worked. But they're shopping it around, and the ones that get high GPAs and the high, honors and so on, they're going to working for Goldman Sachs, and they're working for, Oracle and all these highfalutin corporations who are paying them good money. But then they're all paying $1,000 a month in student loan payments. I mean, you think about it, $100,000 of debt, and they want to pay that off over, say, a 10-year period. They're going to pay $1,000 a month in student loan payments. That's hard to accept, but everybody I was speaking to about it, I'm sitting around sort of like in shock, and everybody I'm talking to is looking at me like, yeah, that's just normal. What's so weird about that?
Well,
that's my conversation.
Yeah.
That is weird to me. Is that weird to you?
So it's weird that it's not weird, but it has become so in the I'm going to say 70s, right? College was an optional sort of thing. Some people went, some people didn't, right? And before that, before the 70s. In the 80s, somewhere along the line, it just became an assumption that you would go to college. Everybody goes to college. It's what you do. You go to college. And then somewhere along the line, a little after that, 90s, early 2000s, it was not only are you going to go to college, you're going to go to an elite college, regardless of the cost. And so this whole student loan thing, these government-backed student loans, essentially, the not really the colleges, the banks were given free rein to write whatever they want to write in terms of loans to people who have no ability to back those loans up. And no collateral needed, just whatever, write whatever you want. Well, the banks certainly enjoyed that because it's backed up by the government. The government will get your money one way or the other. And then the colleges were like, oh, you mean cost doesn't matter anymore? Well, degrees now cost $100,000. And I don't know why everybody seems to think that's okay, but somewhere along the line it was, oh yeah, that's okay. It's not okay, people. It's not.
No, it's not. I mean, what's your experience, Seth? How did it work for you?
Well, okay, so my brothers are 10 years older and older than me. They were able to basically pay for college as they went, working part-time through school while being a full-time student. I was in that transitory period. If I would have done a 4-year degree, I wouldn't have had a lot of debt. But, I stretched it out over 9.5 years. Some of that wasn't in school or whatever. And I really only got student debt my last year. So for 1 year of college, and by then I had no job, so I was able to had a friend in the financial aid department. He was able to push it through using that year's finances, and so I had like basically $12,000 of debt for my last year of school. And it took me several years to pay that off because I was the poor, lazy, don't really want to work, but I kind of have to kind of person. And so I finally got it paid off. But my degree has helped me in the sense of I have a degree. And, unfortunately, in a large section of today's job market, you've got to go through the gatekeepers to get to the interviewers. The interviewers could care less about the degree. They want to know, can you do the job? But the gatekeepers like to see the degrees or the certifications. If you're in an IT field, you got to get through them to get there. And so it's, in one sense, it's the way it is. But, I would love to be able to lay all of this on the government and all of this on the education system. But the family is where the responsibility for educating the children lie. Now, hey, you want to work, so you're choosing to outsource that to the government or private school or whatever. But it's your job to teach your children about finances. It's not the government's job to teach your children how to balance a checkbook or how to, pay your bills at the end of the month and how to save for retirement. And the fact that people don't know how to do that and are okay with not knowing and choose to pass that along to their children, they are just throwing their children out the door and say, here, I got screwed by the world and you're going to get screwed too. And so, yes, is the government exacerbating the situation? Yes. Is the private, degree factory, give us all your money and we'll let you have this piece of paper? Are they part of the problem? Yes. But most people don't need a college degree to do their job. And most people, if they knew better, if they understood basic economics and basic personal finance, it wouldn't be the way it is. So it's not the government's fault, but they do have part of the blame. It's not the college's fault, but they do have part of the blame. It's the family's fault for not caring enough about their kids to teach them that. So that's easy for me, the single guy, to say, and there's some gasoline on the fire. Go, Mark.
Yeah, Miles, do you have any commentary first?
No, I thought you said that very well, Seth. I mean, that was kind of my position. I would add to that something that, I was kind of noticing this week in the news and so on. I mean, there was all this economic news about trade wars and China and all that stuff, which is a whole other topic. But one thing that kept coming up that I was hearing was that economic growth is based on GDP, and GDP is a factor of how productive, the economies were. And the one thing that was slowing down certain economies and making them fall prey to these trade deals and so on was debt. That the countries were carrying a lot of debt and the people were carrying a lot of debt. And I started realizing that all sounds great theoretical. What does it really mean? And then I saw it with my own eyes, face to face, because the kids that were coming out of the college with the $100,000 debt, I had mentioned before about how a lot of them were seeking employment in these corporations and, going off and doing that sort of thing. The problem was a lot of them had no choice other than to accept it. And what that meant was that they were looking down the barrel of carrying around this debt from the day they walk out of that college with their permission slip, with their degree. They're going to walk into the world carrying around this $100,000 of negative debt or negative net worth, and they've got to recover from that. And
let me just interject there. One of the things that bothers me is that people are getting a $100,000 degree for a $30,000 a year job.
Right.
There's nobody's paying any attention to that. If I'm going to go to Stanford and spend $100,000 to get, an engineering degree, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be working at Google in 6 years, making $200,000, that's an investment worth making. If I'm going to be a social worker, that I'll never in my career make more than $50,000, there's no reason to spend $100,000 on a degree. People aren't making good choices about what schools they go to. That's a big part of the problems. Yes, schools are charging way too much money, but your assumption that it's just the way it has to be, I reject that assertion. There are much cheaper ways to go to school, and people are just choosing not to do it.
Well, here's my fear with all of this. If you leave college with $100,000 of debt, you immediately have been shackled. You have no choice other than to go out and take any job you can get that makes money to pay this debt. You don't get to go and pursue your passion. You don't get to invent anything. You don't get to take risks. You are going, you are lumbered like carrying around a boat anchor on your back. You can't take on the risks. And the thing is that society progresses. We all evolve when people take risks. The Google boys took risks when they left Stanford and started Google. If they were carrying around $500,000 of college debt on their backs, would they have been able to do that? I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe somebody funded them, but that's an outlier case. The average kid carrying around $100,000 of debt can't walk into the world and go, I'm going to invent the cure for cancer. No, they can't, because they've got debt. Before they can do anything, they've got to go and get a sucky cubicle job and pay the debt off. And 10 years later, if they've got any energy left, maybe then they can go and find out that they don't want to cure cancer anymore. They're just used to being in the cubicle job, and they just want to continue that paradigm. See, that's the weird thing. My daughter got offered 2 jobs while she was at college for 2 corporations. She turned both of them down. And she, because she has no debt, has chosen to go out and build her own digital media firm. She's gone out to start her own business from the day she left college, and she's already got her first 2 clients. And this from day one. Now, I'm happy that she wants to follow, I guess, in my footsteps of being a contrarian and going against the grain on everything. But the fact that she could do that was because she wasn't saddled with debt. None of her friends can do that. They're all going to go into a systemic job that is pre-programmed with how much holiday time or how much vacation time they can get, what their sick leave is, who's going to pay their health insurance. These are just, it's like this factory, rinse and repeat, push them out into the corporate world, saddle them with debt, and they won't go out there and do anything creative. And I really fear for what society is going to look like in 10 or 20 years if we don't have any more Steve Jobs and Google guys and Zuckerbergs who broke the mold and took the I don't have any debt, I'm free to go and create the next whatever. That's what scares me.
Seth?
No, I mean, I totally agree. It's, like I say, education begins at home, and it's your job as a parent. Again, this is the single guy with no children, is to prepare your children to go forth. You're like, they're like an arrow. They take them out of the quiver, you aim the bow and you shoot, but you've got to train them. I mean, there's a mentality among, I see everybody has it, but it's really pronounced in the people younger than me. You only live once, the fear of missing out. So I've got to have this shiny bauble, so I'm used to taking on debt for that. So then, what's some more debt for a college, and then you're stuck doing this, and then because there's no integrity, you're just going to go for bankruptcy on that. And I don't know. It's just, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of rambling.
Well, you mentioned the I word, integrity. Where's the integrity on the part of the lenders to just say, no, 18-year-old student, you cannot have $100,000? No. Where's the integrity there?
I know. I don't disagree with that. But, just because something is offered, you don't have to take it. You don't have to go to, nobody in my job interviews, nobody was like, oh, your degree wasn't from Yale or it wasn't from Stanford. They just like degree check,
right.
And so, it's that you only live once. Oh, I've got to go to this stupid university that, I'm sorry. I don't want to blow up on it, but it's just so stupid that these universities and the education system is not the same education system that people older than me went through, where they taught you sort of life skills. Now they indoctrinate you with philosophies of what to think and not how to think. And so you get out and you're unprepared to deal. It's like they mold you, and then on the way out the door, they put this leg iron around you and say, here, carry this ball and chain around, and now show me the power of your ideas. And you're like, oh crap, what happened to me? And so
here's an interesting question. Is anybody incentivized to fix this broken system? Because I mean, everybody's winning. The universities are making more money than they've ever made before. The banks are making more money than they've ever made before. The government is, collecting taxes on all that money that's going here and there and everywhere. Everybody wins. I mean, to have good little slaves of the society, is a good thing for everybody but the slave. And so I think the problem is that, Seth, I mean, you've got until the slaves stop feeding at the trough, there's no incentive to fix this.
There's a problem. Okay, so this is an American problem. It's not a world problem, because in other parts of the world, and I grew up in Australia, so I can only speak from that, but I can also speak more to the European angle of this as well. The degree isn't considered the gateway to the middle class. A degree in most other places, certainly in Australia, is not something that is assumed you will go and do. If you've got a hard degree need, like a doctor, a lawyer, an architect, a veterinary surgeon, somebody like that, yeah, you're going to go get a degree, and they assume that, and you go into college. But if you're not any one of those groups, those sort of hard degree industries, you don't go to college. You go out and get an apprenticeship. You go out into the workforce and you work as quick as you possibly can. It's the same in my experience and what I've seen in Europe, in the UK. The American assumption of a degree is the minimum entry-level standard to go and get a middle-class job is a problem, because while we're now reducing our ability to be creative and take risks and do all this other stuff, the other countries out there don't have that burden, and they can go and invent anything that they want at their leisure without having to worry about the fact that the kids are carrying around a lot of debt. And that scares me again, because I see this as a lack of American opportunity.
Well, there certainly is opportunity there, because, Miles, between you and me, we have paid enough for tuition to laborers in the last couple of months, right? So
Yeah,
there
right.
there is a living to be had that doesn't require a degree. I paid the contractor who hired those hard workers lots and lots of money, as did you. Now, I don't know that those workers are seeing that, but the contractor certainly is. I have spent many thousands of dollars very recently on automotive repairs. Again, that is a quote unquote unskilled job there. Those guys can make lots of money. We in the U.S. have declared war on work, to use a phrase from Mike Rowe. We've decided that work is a bad thing. Work is things that other people do. I even joked about it coming onto the show, right? I went to college so I didn't have to work. And I think that's part of the problem too. We disdain things other than the intellectual and the things that require, doing something that isn't, college material. But there's tons of money out there to be had to do that.
Well, one interesting analysis I did when I was sitting down trying to work out, to help my daughter decide whether or not she was going to take a corporate job or whether she was going to go out on her own, is we sat down and looked at it from a purely financial, monetary sense, like spreadsheet it out. How much money are you going to make if you work for corporation X, and versus how much money are you going to make if you worked for yourself? And it's a pretty simple analysis. But one of the things that's very interesting about doing that is that I had to explain to her something that she was never taught at college. And that is, how much money you make is how much money you keep, not how much money you get in your paycheck that you don't get to keep. Like, I'm talking about gross, not,
right.
Net, not, and they weren't thinking like that. So I said, well, if you work for yourself, there's all these tax incentives that you're going to get. You can deduct all these costs, which you couldn't do if you weren't. You can do this sort of thing. You can do that sort of thing. You're in a bit more control. You've got more levers you can pull to enable you to manage your financial life. If you work as a W-2 employee, they just take the tax out of your paycheck and you get what's left. So let's look at what's left as your starting point. And then let's work out, from that, what are you actually going to keep? It worked out that with a $50,000 job, what she gets to keep is half of that, in effect. By the time you take out all of the costs and taxes and everything else, it's so eroded down. So I sat down and worked out what the poverty level was and what the cost of living and various, and it seems to me that anybody who comes out of college with a 4-year degree and $1,000 a month payment on a $50,000 salary, which that's a lot of money. I mean, consider it that's good money for your first job.
Yes.
But even with that, you take out the taxes, you take out the payments, you're living close to the poverty line. You
that's half your take-home pay
to do that. Yeah. The guy who goes and gets a regular job at Walmart or whatever, nothing against that. I think that's fine, but if they get a regular job at $12, $14 an hour, maybe they're an assistant manager or they're working hard, or maybe they have to get 2 jobs or whatever. By the time they actually get to keep that money, because they're not saddled with debt, they actually probably have the same net worth or net value as the college kid coming out saddled with the debt and the $50,000 a year job. So why did you lose 4 years of your life and 4 years opportunity cost going out there getting that degree? When are you going to get that back? Is it going to come back when you're 30, when you're 35, when you're 40? Are you going to be on your way to a $250,000 a year income? Chances are, and statistics would tell you, no, you're probably not. We've got to change the formula, and we've got to change the perception. And the perception is a degree is okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But not having a degree and working hard and earning money is also okay, and there's nothing wrong with it, and it should be celebrated as much.
This bubble has to burst. It can't continue. We will look back in some amount of time. I don't know if it'll be 10 years or 50 years. We'll look back at this point in history and see it as the education bubble. And it will burst in the same way that the .com bubble did, and education will go back to being, a thing that is attainable by the masses. This grand experiment of educating every person or making education available to every person is certainly rare in history. You got to go back to the Library of Alexandria before knowledge was available to everybody. It's been hoarded. So it's a grand experiment. But yeah, the idea of making education a business, I think we'll see that trend is going to fall apart. It's not going to be sustainable because they're raping their own customer base to the point where they can't be customers anymore.
That's right. Preach it.
Well, I mean, it's part of there are some basic sort of fundamental things that we need as humans. One is education, another is healthcare. These are sort of basic fundamental things, and we are just missing the boat on these things. I had dinner last night with a guy who's an orthopedic surgeon and head of a group of orthopedic surgeons here in Phoenix, one of the top guys. And we were just having dinner and talking about it. And he was telling me that he and his family pay nearly $2,000 a month in health insurance. I'm like, dude, you're the head of the Orthopedics Society of Arizona or whatever. Why aren't you getting employee discount here? I mean, what's the deal? $2,000 a month for health insurance? And he just says, yeah, it's just how it is. I said, it's not how it is.
Yeah. Well, that's another avenue where the third-party payer model is ruining the model.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of thing. Jinda in the chat room comments that some college degrees are worthless. That's absolutely true. I would wager that the majority, 50+% of college degrees are in fact worthless, other than to check the box that says I have a degree. I have been in two situations in my career as a low-level hiring manager where I was unable to hire the person I wanted because that box wasn't checked. Whereas my degree has nothing to do with the work I do, but it checks the box. So, yes, some college degrees are worthless in the thing that you're supposed to be able to do, but they check a box.
Is that where maybe that's where you change it? You change it at the HR department. If the HR department starts to relax that and to say, no, you can have years of experience as the alternative to the degree, maybe we can change this.
But you see, that's how come you bring in a new, you want to make money as a consultant, just go and recommend business practices to everyone. Well, this is what business practices say. Business practices say this, business practices say that. You need to adopt that because that's business practice. You need to stop doing that because that's what everybody else is doing. So I don't want to take the risk of hiring someone who's not qualified because they sound qualified. I've covered my behind because you see that they have that college degree. I did my job, check. So the HR person, they're not going to take a risk. And so the job doesn't get done well because, Jack Tradesmith, who has the experience, but he learned it because he didn't go to college, because he came from a poor family. He got a job and learned the system from the ground up. Whereas, Jack Scholarship over here, he's not touched a tool in his life, but he's been through classes where supposedly they went over the manuals, but he gets the job because he knows it and he's got proof that he knows it. Whereas the worker is like, and then he hires the worker for half of what he's worth because he makes the bonuses because he went to college. So yay, America. Sorry. I really do like living in this country. I know it doesn't always come out on the podcast, but it's still a great country to live in.
All right. I think we have explored that topic far more than we thought we would, and that's not a bad thing. It's interesting that our discussions, I began talking about, debt and we've sort of swirled around that drain. I was talking about it before the show started. I began reading a book Miles recommended, The New Confessions of an Economic Hitman. That fundamental premise there is that if you can force people to get in debt, you can own them. That's, super simplified. But it is interesting, the power of debt, and conversely, the power of not owing anyone anything. And yet, our entire society. I mean, of course, it was a salesman, but when I told him I don't borrow money. You know, he was trying to push me on some financing. He said, "Well, the world runs on debt," and he believed that. That wasn't a sales tactic. He truly believed that, and I'm afraid that most of the world, certainly the Western world, absolutely believes that statement is true.
Yeah, I reject it personally, but that's me. It's funny though, because it's very hard to find people who share that thought process. I mean, it's like if I I can't even have a conversation with somebody without feeling like I'm the odd one out.
But it wasn't 2 generations ago. That is a recent development, right? If you go back just 50 years, 80 years, debt was the anomaly. It's a recent development that we've got to make an undevelopment.
Wow, we've got a lot of change to do here.
And Seth, to your point, it begins at home, right? My generation's lost. There's nothing we can do about it. But I can make sure my kids don't fall down that well. Or I can try. I can't make sure, but I can try.
Right. And part of it also goes, again, Dave Ramsey wisdom here, but I don't know if it was Dave Ramsey, but, get your money working for you so that you're not working for your money. Quit. One of the reasons that I have a 5-year-old phone is, granted I'm cheap, but I would rather invest because, I can still text, I can still make phone calls, and my podcast player still works on this phone. So what do I need another one for? There's some nice features that aren't on it, but those aren't features that really impact my life. So who cares if I'm missing out on the latest and greatest? That's not a big deal for me. So I would rather take some money, put it up saving, and watch how much money my money made this month. It's the most I've ever made in 1 month. And and it's sad that how small it is, but it's the victory and it's the momentum of moving forward with that. And so, hey, do I have debt? Yes. Am I slave to the man? Yes. But am I as much of a slave as I was last month? No. So, yay, team.
All right. And in sticking with the theme of, actually, not at all, Seth did have one news story that he wanted us to talk about, and I want to go ahead and bring that up because I think it's interesting. Basically, now the Supreme Court, it's been through a couple of different courts now, and now the Supreme Court says, in fact, Apple is a monopoly and can face penalties therefore.
Well, actually, it just says that the lawsuit against Apple for the App Store monopoly can go forward. So it kind of the equivalent of a grand jury indictment saying, yes, there's something here, but, we're not saying you're guilty, but we're saying there's something fishy going on. So they ruled 5-4 that the Apple app buyers could sue the company for allegedly driving up prices. So, now we get to have that lawsuit work its way. And, hey, this is a great tactic by the Apple legal staff, which is getting paid anyway. Lawyers got a lawyer. So, go out, and round 1 went to the plaintiffs. Round 2, now we get to fight round 2. So long way from over, and even if Apple loses, it'll still be a long way before you get your $2.97 back. So.
Yeah, so basically they're saying that the Apple App Store creates a monopoly, and having monopoly, this is a misconception that a lot of people have about American law. It is not illegal in the U.S. to have a monopoly. It is illegal to abuse a monopoly position. And so the lawsuit says that Apple, having a monopoly in the form of the App Store, they abused that position by jacking up prices unnecessarily, by taking more cut of the revenues than they should. And so that's the thing, that they abuse their monopoly position. Nobody's saying that you can't be a monopoly. They're saying you can't abuse your monopoly position. And so this will be interesting to see what happens. That's going to be a much harder thing to stick. It's going to be a much harder thing to say you abused your position, because abuse is a pretty relative term. But I'll be interested to see how it works out.
It all depends on if they can get it in the East Texas
Yeah.
circuit court. If it gets to go there, then Apple better just come up with a settlement offer.
Because, Microsoft was in this same boat 20 years ago, and it was all about the Microsoft monopoly. And nobody disputed, well, actually, Microsoft disputed that they were a monopoly. From the legal point of view, the courts just conceded that Microsoft held a monopoly position. The argument was, did they abuse it? And so they fought for 20 years, and I don't even know what the answer was. Nobody does. It just died on the vine because people got tired of fighting it. And this may be the same thing. In the year 2041, we may be talking about the fact that there's still litigation going on against Apple.
Yeah, by the time that lawsuit was settled, nobody even used that version of software anymore.
Exactly.
So, and yeah.
And that's not an unusual tactic when the courts are honing in on you for a practice. You just change your practice. I mean, it would not be out of the realm of possibility for Apple to just shut down the App Store and say you go directly to developers now.
Yeah, but they won't do that because that's what they're priding themselves on, the experience. And if they go directly to developers, then they won't be able to maintain that sandbox.
But it wouldn't be out of character because in the original iPhone, there was no App Store. There were no apps. Steve Jobs was adamant that we don't need apps. We just need the web. And so they could chalk it up as saying we're going back to our roots. And it could actually be a PR boon for them.
Wouldn't that just empower Google, though? Because now the entire index to everything available for your device or your technological experience has to be routed through Google search.
Well, no, sideloading is a thing.
No, but I mean to find the app to sideload.
To a Google search. Interesting. So it empowers the search company.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Apple will flip that and become a search engine instead.
Well, yeah, like if I don't use the Apple App Store. I have a Mac I'm running right now, but I didn't use the App Store to find anything. But if I was to look for, I don't know, a video editing software, I could go to the App Store, type that in, and it would give me a list of ones I could easily download. Exactly the same thing could be done on Google. One routes through the Apple App Store and keeps me in the nanny state, and the other one I'm out in the Wild West, and good luck to me, and I'll see what I find. But one way or another, it's either going to be Apple or Google. There's no third option.
Alta Vista's still out there.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Bing has a search engine that occasionally produces results that contain part of what you were looking for. I mean, you're being awfully hard to say that's the only option out there, Miles.
I know.
And Facebook wants to be a search engine. Amazon wants to be a search engine. Everybody's trying to figure out how to keep Google from having any of their data because Google is scary with the data that they have of you.
That's a strong statement, and we could easily crawl down that rabbit hole. But I'm going to stay strong, and I'm going to resist the bait.
Trying to fan the flames. Come on, just do what you said.
Maybe we'll talk about that next week. But for now, I'm going to say, hey, Seth, what happened this week in history?
All right, so this was a cool little fact I came across on May 17th, 1991. So the first web server in history is set up. Tim Berners-Lee, I'll have to look up to see how this is at least the second, if not third time he's been featured here, set up a web server on a Next Cube at CERN, the European Particle Physics Laboratory in Geneva, Switzerland. The launch of this first web server is considered the public release of the World Wide Web. And just some specs on the Next Cube: 25 megahertz processor, 16 megs of RAM, expandable to 64, hard drive of 400 meg, and you could get a SCSI drive attachment of 1.4 or 2.8 gigs. So that's the spec of the first web server in history, and that happened this week in history back in 1991. And now, Mark, back to you.
And I'm going to go to the archives of my dusty brain. I'm not even going to Google it. SCSI is Small Computer Serial Interface. The internet will let me know if I'm wrong. But the Next Cube. That's where Steve Jobs went, right? He went to Next when Apple fired him. It was a thing. Yeah, the web, this thing that we exist on, right? This whole podcast, none of this would be a thing without the web. And it's only 27 years old.
Yeah, the web was the
28.
killer app for the internet.
It was.
People think of it as maybe email and so on, but they forget that really the web was the thing that made the internet the internet.
Yep.
All right. I am going to bring my own show ending link tonight. Seth can still bring his, but I'm going to bring one as well. And since Seth is about cats and the internet loves cats, I'm going to go a little more esoteric, and only half the internet likes guns. But I just want to, if you are a guitar player and if you like guns, or if you like guns, either or. One of my new favorite YouTube channels is called Guns and Guitars. Dan Thompson is the guy. And specifically, the video I'm linking to is a thing that I tried out just today in church at his recommendation. It's a set of $50 wireless guitar units. If you played guitar for any amount of time, you realize how ridiculous that statement I just said was. $50 for a wireless system. But this wireless system not only is a guitar system, but it's the only one I've ever seen that has a built-in headphone amp. So I used one for go from my bass to my pedal. I used another to go from the personal sound mixer, the Avium, to my headphones. So I was completely wireless. I had a wireless mix and my wireless guitar for $100. Amazing. And I tried it this morning in church. They ran for the full 3.5 hours I was there on about half a charge. And it was, I'm not going to say flawless quality. It was good quality for $100. So full credit to Dan Thompson for turning me onto it. And he's got links to the stuff if you're interested, plus a 10% off code at that video. So Dan Thompson, Guns and Guitars. Check it out.
Okay. I wasn't going to bring this up, but you just flicked my memory. I was watching just some highlights from the Warriors Trailblazers game, and they were talking about the post conference, and some idiot asked the coach of the Portland Trailblazers what he thought about a situation where a kid brought a gun to school. I mean, I thought, you idiot. I mean, if there's one question that doesn't belong in a post game basketball conference, it's that. And, and he's just like, don't know what happened. I'm not going to comment. And apparently he figured out he was supposed to say something because nobody would ask another question. And he said, well, guns don't belong in school. Everybody knows that, or something like that. I was like, dude, many days I went to school with a shotgun in the back of my truck and ammo with it. And I wasn't alone. I remember in class, our teacher, hey, anybody have a knife? He wasn't trying to get us in trouble. He needed to cut something. And everybody pulls out their little lock blades, and I'm the weird guy. I pull out my 16 function Swiss Army knife. So, that's what a difference a generation makes. Tons of us had guns in school. We could have started a militia out in the parking lot. Red Dawn would have been a fight for Edgewood High School. So if we could have made it to the parking lot, it would have been battle on. And so just society has changed. Men used to be men. And I'm sorry, I just had to throw that little rant in.
Well, as long as you're talking, what do you have for your link of the week?
Okay, I came across this, and it's kind of, in one way, it's kind of genius, and in another way, it's like, Garfield minus Garfield. So this guy has taken the Garfield comic strips, and he's taken Garfield out of them. So you just have John reacting to nothing, and it's just like, I can't tell if he's depressed or if he has a schizophrenic associative disorder or something. But you can go back, and it doesn't seem like it's updated as much, but I clicked on the first comic and started going forward, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, he's a depressed guy on Prozac or something, imagining a cat talking to him. Garfield minus Garfield at garfield-garfield.net. Give it a try. It's kind of funny, and anyway, just Garfield minus Garfield. That's my link of the week.
That is hilarious. It really is. And I loved Garfield as a kid. It was my favorite. I used to go to the library and check out the Garfield books. And this is, of course, he had to cherry pick them, but this is awesome. Just the John saying random things to himself. It's awesome.
And like if you go back to the first and start going forward, where it's like, he's like talking about, I'm gonna ask somebody out, and then he just kind of sits there. And so anyway, it's just it's fun.
Yeah, the one I'm looking at right now, February 13th, John says, I've done things in my life that I regret. And then it's just 2 more frames of him sitting there. It's so avant-garde. It's awesome. Thank you, Seth. That's a good one.
I try.
All right, and this is the part of the show where I tell you how you can feedback to us. Do you like guns? Do you like guitars? Do you like debt? What do you like? Do you like weird cats? You can let us know by going to elementop.com. Click the Contact Us button at the top of the page. Answer the world's hardest CAPTCHA. Fill out the form there, and that will get priority in my inbox. Or you can send an email to geekrant@elementop.com. Or if you'd like your voice to appear right here alongside ours, you can dial 559-IM-OP and leave us a Google Voice message, and we'll probably play it right here on the show. So let us know what you think. Something... The people who are good at this stuff say that you need to ask a question, give a command, and then say something controversial. So pretend I did all of those things, and then we'll get some response. Guys, any final words of wisdom before we say goodnight?
I got nothing.
Yeah. Okay.
Nothing fit for print.
Well said. All right. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us. Jinda, as always, thanks for joining the YouTubes. There are a few of you out there. There's like a dozen or so of you that watch this every week. Maybe show up in the chat room at elementop.com/live along about 7:30 p.m. on a Sunday night and join us. And I guess we'll see you next week if we decide you're worth it.
Man.
That's just kind of the tone of the night has been meh, whatever. All right, so hopefully we'll be back next week. I'm going to quit talking before I dig the hole any deeper. And remember, pay for what you like.
Bye.
Even Jinda has nothing,
Yeah, it's one of those days.
All right, YouTube people, as always, thanks for hanging out with us, and we will see you next week, probably. Let's see, the only show I know we're not doing in the near future is Father's Day, which is about 3-ish weeks from now.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we'll be here, with or without preparation beforehand. All right, we'll see you later. Bye, everybody.